Hey, I'm Didirri, and I'm here chatting with Milky. When I was a kid, I went to a lot of folk festivals down southwest, Port Fairy Folk Festival in Victoria, and I saw a lot of artists telling their stories on stage, and I just fell in love with the storytelling side of music. I kind of didn't really work out that I wanted to make music myself until I was maybe 18, went and studied jazz, decided I wasn't super into that, started busking in Melbourne and haven't had a job since, so this is it. The album centers around death and I guess close encounters with it and distant encounters with it. My uncle passed while I was writing and I went to a Zoom funeral, but also kind of dived into a lot of philosophy, a lot of Eastern philosophy during this record. I guess just came to some conclusions that really led me towards some of those opening tracks, like Obsolete Machine in particular. Just kind of coming to terms with and at peace with the fact that I have a body that's going to break down one day, and that kind of puts everything in perspective for me, and I really don't have time to mess around with not treating people with respect and not pursuing things that I think are beautiful in this world. And I really pushed hard on this record just to make it as good as it could be. It was, I'm not like a perfectionist. I really don't enjoy that term, but I do really like pushing to do as well as I can on every record. And this one's no exception. The album is very live, which was a breath of fresh air to me, especially after so much isolation in the last few years. Yeah, I had a hunger in me to be with a band, and we recorded with a lot of bleed, all the mics on. Sometimes I was even singing in the room, and there's just something magical that happens when you do that. And a lot of engineers will go for isolation, so they have wiggle room later on to mix a record, but this just felt so organic and real and spiritual. We're very focused in the room on the music, each other, and just expressing 1% better what emotions we were feeling. And a lot of that comes from kind of getting rid of distraction, really. We'd do long sessions, make sure no one had their phones, and really just be there with each other, trying to do a thing. I mean, I think a good chunk of maturity comes from just making music for a while. You get bored making the same thing over and over again, and I guess what, for me personally, what stands out in this record, in the making of this record, was I just really focused in on the writing itself. I took every song with the help of Robert Munoz, who was producing, and I just wrote thorough notes on how they could be better. It's not from a commercial standpoint, it's more from a how can every line just cut a little deeper and be a little stronger in its message. We really tried hard to make every line just stand on its own and be really strong. And I would be brutal. And so would my producer. He's the first producer that I've ever worked with that had the guts to kind of push me. And it was always from a place of, not from a place of opinion necessarily, but from a place of, do you believe in that, Didirri? Do you like this line? And if the answer was even a half no or a half yes, he would say, then work on it. And I'd leave the room and I'd go work on the song. As a result, I can stand by every line on the record. I guess that stands out to me as being very different from my last records. And I have huge respect for the producers that worked on the last records, and every record stands in its place and there's no real point looking back on them because they are reflective of where you're at the time. But I had never worked with a producer that pushed me to be better, according to myself. I think Love Can Bleed You by the Hand was the first song on the record, and it really represents the meaning of the record. It stands on its own and is a really, it's a centerpiece for me on the record. Begin Again was also a huge, I guess, sums me up from a philosophical standpoint. And from a musical standpoint, I have pop sensibility. I also wouldn't call myself a pop artist. Maybe I'm pop's a funny term. It can mean a lot of things. I definitely like a melody that doesn't feel forced, and that came from, I guess, studying jazz and being like, I like jazz when people enjoy it, enjoy the playing of it, and when they play from the heart. But I feel like there's a lot of jazz used for evil in the world, and I stripped everything back to just straight melodies, and Begin Again is just a really, I think, good example of what kind of songwriting I like. There's a lot of structure in my music too, even though I break a fair bit of those molds fairly frequently. And then probably Often Broken. It just has that right amount of like weirdness that I like in songs. Again, I kind of don't like things when things are deliberately maybe inaccessible. I do like a good amount of weirdness in a track and a record. And when you make an album, you get so much more room to dive into those weird bits. Often Broken as a song really wrote itself very easily. Some of the lines in there really stand out to me even now. Yeah, there's a line, I really like lines that put you in the room with a person, not just like in their feelings, but put you in the room. And the third verse of Often Broken, here we are now, sitting there smiling on your mother's couch. Is this the last hour? All things die, all things sour. And to me, yeah, that's the kind of songwriting I like. Puts you in the room, then maybe goes a little existential and says something about the moment in maybe a little more of a poetic way than just stating how it is. Yeah, I'm really proud of that verse, but I have a very funny relationship with songwriting because I honestly don't feel like... It is definitely a skill that you can hone and get better at, but songs do just come out of thin air, and sometimes they come really easily, and Often Broken definitely fits into that category. And I don't know if I would necessarily say that I'm proud of the songwriting because I don't really feel like I wrote it, if that makes any sense. I guess not shying away from narrative within the music video context. I think a lot of music videos kind of are just nonsensical, beautiful stuff, and that's fine. But for me personally, when I collaborate with someone, I want them to be excited about what they do, and that comes down to producers, musicians, whoever it is. And in the case of directors, most directors, the music video is like a side project. They're into films and narrative, and letting them actually do that makes them really excited. And I think you get the best result out of creative, talented people having fun and getting excited. And this whole record has so many beautiful music videos from William Alexander Bleakley and Jesse Lehman, and both of them are fantastic directors. And we shot it all on film, which was also just a beautiful medium to work with. Yeah, there's a rawness and an excitement in using such tactile materials to make music videos, and what an honor to put it to my music. I think there will always be a place for people connecting with people in a one-to-one capacity, and personally I'm not a spiritual, as in traditionally religious person, but this is as close to church as I get. Music is a marvelous thing that we creatures do, where we try and feel the same thing at the same time in a room. And I think that is vitally important, especially right now. It's wild to live in a world where we are so disconnected, and these cultural moments matter. They bring us together and make us feel like we're all the same, and I think that's incredibly important. Geordie Lane, Nick Cave, Blake Mills. Adrian Lenker songs. Nothing. Thank you for the music. Coldplay. Nick Cave. Carla Geneve. Paradiso in Amsterdam. Hurricane, Bob Dylan. 8 minutes. You got to take up all the time you can. The best shows are never memorable. It's a blur. The Beatles. You're fine. Chill out. Everything. Something Irish. When I got fired from my only job.